You were born with individual strengths and a unique purpose. Don't let fears, false beliefs, or life's happenings diminish your influence. It's time to live and lead for impact. Host Kirsten Ross, expert of transformation, will help you defeat the drama and overcome the trauma that can stop you in your tracks. You'll gain focus, find confidence, and take bold action. Unleash passionate, purposeful you. Let's go.
Welcome to Live and Lead for Impact. I'm Kirsten Ross, your host, and this is episode 223. I have Chris Wexler with me today, and I'm really inspired by the work that he's doing. It's so important. He is the founder, one of the founders, and CEO of Crunam, the best-in-class image and video classifier of child sexual abuse materials. Crunam was the vessel that brought his professional expertise together with the long history of advocacy in the anti-human trafficking space. You can find more, you're going to hear some great information from him, but we'll also have the link on the show notes for today, and it's crunam.co. But welcome, Chris.
I'm so excited to be here, Kirsten. It's a real honor to be able to talk to you and your audience. It's an exciting thing.
Yeah, so let's get the word out about this important impact that you're making. So tell me more specifically, what is the impact you are working to make in the world? And also, you shared a little bit about the name of your company. So let's dive into that as well.
Yeah, we are a company that is focused on eliminating the distribution and proliferation of child sexual abuse material, CSAM. I think parochially that has been referred to as child porn, but pornography implies consent. And when there's a child involved, that's never possible. And so we refer to it as CSAM. And so we're really focused fully on that. We have a technology, we have data governance experts, we have experts to help people with content moderation, really all focused on what is a growing problem on sites we all use every day. Last year alone, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children had over nearly 70 million reports of CSAM from platforms like Facebook and Twitter and, fill in the blank, everything we use every day. And unfortunately, the way that is currently being mitigated on most of these platforms is there's a decent but not holistic piece of software they use, but most of it is being literally viewed by humans. So you see it when you're on the platform and you flag it. Then it goes to a human moderator. Then it goes to their manager. It actually kind of compounds that damage. And what you see is the people doing content moderation are actually typically only in their job about 6 to 9 months, and they're ending up with PTSD. It's just a brutal way to make a living. And so we have a piece of technology that we've developed. We originally developed for British law enforcement for their home office, which, if for those in the U.S., is kind of like the FBI, CIA, and local police all wrapped into one, Homeland Security, where they had the foresight to start kind of collecting all of the confiscated materials. And our CTO, Scott Page, one of our founders, and Ben Gantz, another one of our founders, realized back in 2015, 2016, that technology could do a better job, and it just would have less of a negative impact on the world if we could train AI and computer vision to identify this materials. And so they set about to do that. And we now have something that's on estimate about 10 times more effective than the current software, that can speed investigations, can keep content off of everyday sites, and really just stop the re-abuse of children that have already gone through the worst trauma in their life. And so that's really the focus of what we're trying to do, is really break the cycle early. We named our company after this amazing woman, Crunam, out of Thailand. She is a child safety warrior there. She was a street artist up in Chiang Mai and doing very well. Um, but she did a project, as artists do, and like, I'm going to do something. And so she did a project teaching the street kids in Chiang Mai to paint, and said, just paint your life. And she was absolutely shocked by what she saw them paint. It was their everyday life, and she didn't first time realized that some of the karaoke bars in Chiang Mai were actually fronts for child prostitution. And so, unlike 99.9% of the world, including myself, she just marched into the brothels and pulled the kids out, and just pulled more and more out. She finally had 20 kids in her tiny little apartment, and that's when the traffickers came to her and said, "If you pull one more kid out of our brothels, we're going to kill you." So she got out of town and had 20 to 30 kids up in a field in northern Thailand. She has since created a compound with the help of one of our nonprofit partner, Not for Sale, where she saved thousands of kids over the last 15 years. And in fact, one of the first kids she pulled out of that horrible situation has been the first non-state child in Thailand to graduate from university. She has constantly evolved her techniques and her approach to save more kids. And so we're really taking the spirit that she has of conviction and evolution, of using the best approach possible to save more kids, and taking what she does in real life and doing it in the virtual world through Crew Nam. So we couldn't think of a better way to kind of focus our attention every day when we're doing the work we're doing.
Well, thank you for that great explanation. And so it sounds like, are you looking to connect with kind of larger organizations, or even, ideally it sounds like Facebook or Twitter or other social media platforms, to have them begin utilizing your software?
Yeah, everything from, the kind of the random photo app, manipulation app that you might have in your phone, all the way up to Facebook or Microsoft or a Twitter. And so we really, any company that holds images or videos of the public. And so that's a wide range of organizations around the world. Because unfortunately, the people who traffic in CSAM, while some definitely are out on the dark web and hiding there very in a very sophisticated manner, most of this is actually happening out in the open, and it's just being lost in the volumes and volumes of interactions that happen every day on everyday sites. And we just think, not only is that something that shouldn't be happening, because that's how people stumble into this and kind of tumble down dark rabbit holes, but also, there's no reason for these companies to be profiting off of that, because there's often ads next to it. And, it's their responsibility to keep their platforms clean, and they recognize that. They have entire big organizations in there, with the big companies, big organizations that really work on keeping this off their platforms. For the smaller companies, they really need to rely on automation. And so we can scale up and scale down from, like a 1,000-person company all the way down to a 2-person operation that's running an app. And so it's really about keeping everybody safe on those platforms.
Now, are you also collecting metadata or any information that would be helpful to law enforcement or others to track down the origination of the material, or is it just about getting it off, which, either and both are very important?
Well, the U.S. and 46 other countries have mandatory reporting. And so we work with our partners to collect the right metadata and to report that to the proper authorities. Because the origination of our business was really to support law enforcement. When you look back at the problem we were initially trying to solve is child sexual abuse investigators were spending 80% of their time going through confiscated materials and 20% of their time doing what humans do best, which is complex investigations. And we've since flipped that script, where you're spending significantly, 20, 30% of your time actually going through materials and spending much more of your time investigating the crimes. We were really a force multiplier for law enforcement. And so that's deep within our DNA, is really pushing a lot of this content to law enforcement as quickly as possible. The current technology that's out there is called hashing, and so I'm sure people may have heard about Apple's announcement that they're going to scan for CSAM, and other companies have done it, but they're using a technology called perceptual hashing, which essentially is law enforcement has already found an image and verified it, and then put it essentially what is a digital fingerprint that identifies that image. The problem with that is that there's a year lag often on that before it gets into the hash set, and so that child has been in danger for a full year. Our technology is all based on essentially pattern recognition, body position, relative body size, skin, the amount of skin being seen, genitalia, that kind of thing. And so it can identify brand new, like created that day, abuse material. And so it should speed, as we get applied more broadly over the around the ecosystem, it's going to speed alerts to the law enforcement and save kids. And so on a very real basis, it should really pull kids out of danger more quickly, which is one of the kind of driving forces behind what we want to do.
Well, and less trauma for those needing to look
Yes.
at the pictures to,
Mhm.
personally.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it sounds really amazing. And so, what is your personal motivation? Do you have any, what motivated you to move into this space?
Well, I was. It's interesting. I have a unique career background in that I started on Wall Street for 3-4 years, and then I was in ad technology and marketing strategy for 15 years plus, almost 20 years. And the whole time I enjoyed the work. I was intellectually stimulated, but I was kind of really hungry to make a deeper impact. And so I was volunteering and helping with anti-human trafficking elements, partially because my brother started an anti-human trafficking organization. And once your eyes are open to the depth and scope of that problem, all of a sudden you realize, holy cow, that is an unbelievable thing that's happening in our world. It's the illegal profits off of human trafficking rivals that of drugs, of the illegal drug trade. And we're not talking about moving cocaine around. We're literally talking about moving people around, and 70% of them are women and children. And so once your eyes are open to that kind of toxic waste of capitalism, and preying on the weakest of society around the world, but frankly even in the U.S., you realize you really, there something has to be done. And so when the opportunity came to kind of bring my background in business and my background in big data and AI, and bring that into something that has a direct impact on trafficking, I was like, it was a no-brainer. I had to bring my vocation and my advocation together. That was a critical thing for me, and it's been an unbelievably fulfilling thing for me. But also, I discovered, sometimes that's a little hard because, when you're at a regular job, going, I'm going to take a vacation, is a little easier than when you go, well, if I don't do this, somebody else is going to suffer. And so finding space for yourself in there is something I've had to learn over the time doing this.
Oh, I'm sure the sense of overwhelm and keep moving because, must be incredibly large. And it sounds like you had such a, kind of the perfect combination of experience to bring to this effort. So tell me, is there a specific impact that you can think of that really fuels your own passion? And I always look for those stories because, whether we're entrepreneurs or, starting nonprofits, working for social enterprise, there's always going to be challenges and times where we feel like giving up. And that fuel is the passion that can give us the tenacity we need to keep moving. And I think it's so important to anchor to some very specific outcomes that we've helped to create, whether it's directly or indirectly. And so, do you have a story like that really continues to fuel your passion during tough times?
Well, I think if anything, I just have to kind of thank my parents. They've always been focused on giving And so, if anything, I was wired through that to be just focused on others, which is it's interesting because like when I was one of the top people in my industry in ad technology and marketing technology, and I'd go home for Thanksgiving, and my sister was helping run a hospital in Honduras, and my brother was an anti-trafficking warrior, and I was the black sheep as the executive. Like typically, it was the other way around. And I mean, all the way down to my parents deciding to live in Minneapolis, 30 years ago, when they could have easily gone to the suburbs because they really believed in helping make a healthy city. And you can see that obviously with what happened with George Floyd, etc., that it's people like them that really helped the city heal. And so I really have to say that what's interesting is I probably had a harder time driving forward on my quote unquote conventional career than I do here, because this just it feels like I'm finally in tune with how I was brought up. And so I wish I had some kind of come to Jesus moment where it was like, oh, this is how this works. But unfortunately, I think I'm just kind of wired this way. And I'll take when I say unfortunately, I shouldn't say that. I just say I don't have a great story for it, because I'm blessed to kind of just have this in my background.
Well, every backstory is always important. It can be motivating. So
this one isn't very exciting.
But there might be some parents listening who are like, "Ooh, I'm going to be more intentional about really, kind of sharing that with my kids as they grow up." So, because that's another. I mean, there's always a way to motivate others through our stories.
That is true.
So, beyond the challenge of making sure you're carving out time for yourself, or maybe that is your biggest internal challenge, what, let me rephrase, let me go back to my question. We may need to edit that. So you mentioned that it's difficult for you to take time off, that self-care, which is so important, that so many people struggle with. Would you say that's been your biggest internal challenge, or is there another? And how have you overcome that?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the biggest pull. Is I've never felt so guilty on when I have taken time, and so I think it's more just reminding myself on a regular basis that the only way I can make a great impact is if I'm strong, and that's mentally and physically. And so that has been, I think it's just been a mindset change around, hey, that means you have to, you might have to take some downtime right now to be better tomorrow. And thinking about it holistically, I think it was a mindset change I didn't expect I'd have to do. I'm always used to being a hard worker. I've always used to kind of putting my nose to the grindstone, but also, relaxing aggressively. I like to, like find a beach
I like that,
and chill out. But and it probably doesn't help that we're in the middle of a pandemic as we've gone through this. Like, we really have established this company. The first conversations around this company started literally a month, or no, 2 weeks before the first lockdown. And so, there's also the wrap up of that's changed all of our patterns of self-care. And so finding the right pattern for that has been really critical.
I love that you talk about, how did you put that again? Aggressively
relax.
Yes. Because I find with my clients very often, same thing. They all struggle with that. And we live in such an instant gratification, multitask. It is, be efficient. We just feel there's so much guilt often in that downtime. And so we do need to reframe it, I think. And so I love the term you use. I often use rejuvenation, because again, that feels like active and intentional. Another thing I share often is consider it a cocoon phase, because sometimes it can look like nothing's happening, but there could be a huge metamorphosis happening under the, so just consider it, it looks like downtime, but it really isn't. It could be a time of reflection, or just taking a nap, rejuvenating.
It's interesting that you kind of say that, because that is definitely how I find my way to inspiration. Is I think it's sometimes really hard to turn off your logical mind, and I think that when you're dealing with problems where you need to be creative, in our case in how you approach a problem or solve a problem or frame a problem or talk about it, because often what we're trying to do is actually convince people to kind of take an extra step that may not be what they is just required by the law, but required more morally. I think it's really sometimes it's really important. We always talk about those kind of shower moments where you're in the shower and all of a sudden you go, oh, that's the idea. I've learned to be very methodical in trying to just shut down my thinking so my subconscious can work on problems. And so that's when kind of when I say I aggressively relax, is I'm trying to find things to distract me enough where my brain can work on other problems. And sometimes that's just as simple as playing a game or going for a walk, just something to distract you just enough so your brain can work on the problem in the background. And I think that's I think too often we are constantly actively trying to think about something, but our brains work on a deeper level, and sometimes that's the most inspiration I get, is when I'm actually doing something else.
I love that thought. Yeah, because when I always think of like in conversation or trying to make things happen, which it's so hard because we're trying to make our impact. We want to make a difference. We're driven for that. But in doing so, yeah, we can over control or over push or over, and really, yeah, it's in those quieter times. It's funny. I actually have a waterproof notepad and pencil that I found that's in my
Nice.
shower. And also, I am definitely prone, especially if I'm working on something creative. I find that about 3 or 4 in the morning tends to be my time that I wake up
Interesting.
with these ideas. And so I email them to myself because, if you tell
Mm-hmm.
yourself you're going to remember, one, you likely won't. Two, you're going to stay awake trying to mull it over in your brain too much to
Yep.
make sure you remember. So, yeah, I love that. And or just walking in the quiet, walking
Mm-hmm.
in nature, those kinds of things. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that thought though. I hadn't really connected it that it's kind of the behind the scenes thinking that is working creatively versus that kind of front of our brain pushing and trying so hard to come up with solutions.
Yeah, like when you're doing that, often you end up with conventional ideas, because your brain is, and our brains are really pattern machines. They look for patterns. And sometimes the pattern isn't that obvious. Sometimes you need to take a step back and take a deeper look. And sometimes you have to do that by just turning off part of your brain. And so that's, I think, why downtime is so critical when you're dealing with creativity and problem solving. It's really critical to find that way to do that. During the pandemic, I found fly fishing to be one way to do that. You really have to be focusing on the water and focusing on what bugs are in the air. And I'm not typically an outdoorsy person, so like literally how to throw the line. And I've had more good ideas about crew nom while on the water than I have grinding away at my desk. And so sometimes you just need to do that.
Hmm. And I tell you, I feel like creative problem solving has kind of taken a step back lately.
Yes.
And I really, yeah, I find in so many instances, I'm really working with clients to encourage them to creatively problem solve and look at, that old saying too, can't see the forest for the trees. That applies so often to the challenges that they're experiencing, because they look at each challenge as a brand new thing. Oh, let's fix that. Oh, let's fix that. And they don't realize, like, wow, you fixed the same problem like 3 times a week for the last 8 months. Can we
Mm-hmm.
like look to solve it ongoing instead? And then they want to be so locked into their current process and defend, like, no, we do things really, really efficiently. Okay.
Right.
So I love, yeah. So we encourage downtime, rejuvenation, aggressive relaxation. So tell me, Chris, what words of wisdom do you have for others who maybe they're just getting started to make their own impact? It's just that little niggling feeling at this point. What would you tell them?
That you can make an impact even if it doesn't look like you're making an impact. And I think that was something I had to learn as I was in my quote unquote conventional career. I think I was very restless in my career because I wanted to find something that fit. But what I found is that I could really have an impact even within the organization that I was with, whether that was mentoring young employees or pushing the company that I was with to make the right choices, and make the world I was in a better place. I think too often we try to create this artificial separation of, well, that person's doing good and that person is having a career, and those are two different things. Or this person, I think the clearest definition of that is, well, I'm in a for-profit and you're in a nonprofit, and those are two different worlds. And one of the things we're doing with CrewNom is we're a public benefit corporation. So we are a blend of, we literally have a fiduciary responsibility in our charter to not only make money for the owners and the shareholders, but also to make an impact on the world in fighting CSAM. And so I think too often we try to make that a black and white thing, that you're either doing it or you're not. And I think that as a result, we've weakened the impact of everyday companies, and we've weakened the impact of the nonprofit world, because we think it's distinct, and impact can happen in so many different ways. And so, I'm as proud of the, dozens of people that I mentored in my kind of advertising career. I'm as proud of the impact there, because I know their lives are fundamentally different, as I am of the impact we're doing at CrewNom. It's obviously on a different scale, and it's impacting people in a different way. But I know that there is impact there. And I think we're often too hard on ourselves when we're trying to make impact. I'm lucky right now that I have a situation where I can really scale my skills to do that, but not everybody gets that. I got lucky. Not everybody gets that opportunity. So make the impact in the world you're in. I think that's really critical.
I was jotting down notes while you were talking, because everything you just said took me down a couple of really important paths. And one is, so often we minimize the impact that we are making, and it could be very small. It could just be a seed that we're planting. It could end up with a ripple effect. I mean, we never know the full impact of even just one conversation. So it is so hard if we start comparing ourselves to others and deciding like, oh, they're doing so much more. Or that person is so much more successful than I am. And we use these measures and markers to compare, but there really is no way of knowing for sure the amount of impact we have. Again, even if it's one conversation with one person, they might share wisdom, or they might go on to do other things. And so no impact is small. Everything is opportunity. So keep going, and stop the comparisons. And the other thing is, I wanted to point out that what you're describing in the US, we call social enterprise. And I was just having a really great conversation with someone yesterday while I was horseback riding out in nature about social enterprise, because I too love that blend. For profit. And we were actually, we could go down a whole nother rabbit hole here of like capitalism and the absence of valuing human life and our planet, where our only measure is dollars, becomes problematic. And for the not-for-profit world, definitely impact and outcomes are important, but they can't have investors. They're only looking for donors. And of course, those donors are wanting outputs, but they end up competing a lot. And but I love the blend of that, of looking comprehensively at, and just really shifting the definition of success for an organization, where it's, there is a bit of profit, or maybe a lot of profit, but you get to have profit and impact, and you're looking at it holistically.
Yeah, we're actually part of a suite of companies that are coming out of our partner Just Business. It's a impact incubator out of the Bay Area, and they really started because they were running a nonprofit and realized they were spending 70% of their time raising money and 30% of their time doing the actual work. And so they're like, and they were getting pushed off mission, because when you talk to a big foundation or something like that, you kind of have to craft your pitch to what the money wants. And so they went and said, we're going to start a company. And they like to say that it's a company looking, it's a cause looking for a company versus the other way around. And so their very first one was actually, if you ever are in Whole Foods, is Rebel Drinks, Rebbl. And it's now the fastest growing natural drink company in the U.S., in the history of the U.S., and is on sale all around the country. And now a suite of 9 different companies are funding the nonprofit. The idea was you can have, and this is kind of even before B Corp, they kind of started this, and so now then they moved to B Corp, and now we're literally incorporated as a public benefit corporation. That move towards that blended model is such a powerful thing, because you can attract top talent, and great people that are in the nonprofit space can actually get compensated properly for their skills. All of these things kind of take away some of the tension that was getting in the way of making a positive impact, and so it's a super exciting new model. The other thing you kind of talked about was, and now I've lost it.
Comprehensively defining success?
No.
Yes.
Yes, I agree with that.
But that wasn't the path. Oh, the ripple effect.
Oh,
no.
Boy. Oh, well.
It'll come to you.
It'll come to me eventually, and then we'll maybe get back to it. I had to throw out
there a good friend of mine that I've known since high school, since we're on this topic of social enterprise. She comes out of the traditional, investment world, and, where there is reporting for that. And again, net profits are the measure, and Gene Grass Global now helps run reports for social enterprises, where investors can now see the kinds of reporting that they expect in traditional investing, but that it also incorporates the impact. So she's very knowledgeable and has been in the space for a long time and has done some really exciting work.
Well, that's really great. That's wonderful.
Yeah. So, we kind of went down a path I didn't anticipate, but it is so timely. Again, I was just having this amazing conversation and just talking about how exciting it is to have that blend. I'll never forget, years ago, there was a building that had a lot of different nonprofits, and they asked me to come in and do a training for them. And I brought them together. And again, nonprofits working in the same building, most of them had never met, and they had never shared their goals. And I taught them about networking and collaborating, and what an important skill that comes from the business world. But again, there's so much competition for those resources, and they're spending so much time, looking for the funding and the dollars and all of that they were missing the opportunity to, and they had absolutely collaborative services, or complementary services. So should have known one another, should have been recommending one another, and we're in the same space. So yes, I love social enterprise and the opportunity that it's providing. And I've actually had the benefit of working with a great foundation locally that is doing a lot of impact investing and just increase their local impact investing portfolio. And they're in the process of making a new hire that I'll get to help with. So nice. Super fun. And I always say, thank you so much for doing this work and letting me be a small part, because then that's the way I get to make my impact.
That's wonderful.
So Chris, thanks so much for sharing. And thank you for the important work that you're doing. I certainly hope that you can get your technology to more and more organizations who absolutely need it. Any last parting words?
Well, I will say that if you... there's a couple things I'd like to talk about. One is, don't forget to talk to your political leaders, when you are working on technology platforms. Make your voice be heard that, keeping kids safe is critical, and doing that is right. So there's that. Just be an advocate there. And but I think the other thing is, I think we're in an interesting spot in the world where we're talking a lot about online privacy, and we're talking a lot about online protection. And so I just want to say, have a nuanced view of privacy. I think too often we think, well, and we've been abused by some companies that have created kind of a surveillance capitalism of selling all of our motion on emotions online, and so there's been this move, particularly among well-to-do people, to have privacy be a really big, an absolute privacy online be really important. But when companies like Apple start scanning their devices for CSAM, or when you hear about, or even law enforcement doing minor things to scan devices in the internet, don't be realize that this is a balance of competing goods, of privacy and surveillance, and we definitely can't go down the full surveillance path of things. That's just a problem. Obviously, we've seen the problem of having too much surveillance, but we also can't go down the path of complete privacy, because that's where child predators, that's where online criminals, they're going to thrive in that environment. And so, I think one of the big social challenges for us as a society is really having a nuanced view of privacy versus security online. And the only way we're going to have a healthy and robust conversation and connections online is if we find the balance between those two. And so I just say that the next time that you're freaking out about some kind of some kind of scanning, or you're thinking, oh, I might go full end-to-end encryption, recognize that there are real costs to full privacy that unfortunately children and the weakest among us are going to pay. And so just have a nuanced view of that conversation.
Thank you. And we need nuanced views on so many topics today.
Exactly.
Because humans are way more complex than black and white would suggest.
Exactly.
And but our brains are also have such a capacity for creative problem solving if we allow it.
Exactly.
Well, thank you, Chris, so much. And again, you can find all the information and links to Chris and Crunam by going to today's episode show notes. Go to defeatthedrama.com, click on the podcast tab, and go to episode 223. And again, thank you, Chris, so much for all the amazing work that you're doing. And I wish you much success. We need your technology in the hands of many.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for giving me this platform to talk about Crunam, and good luck with everything you're doing. You're doing good work.
Thank you.